YouTube, and welcome to yet another finale night fake news video. Today we're going to be looking at my final four matches, the semifinals, and if I win the semifinals, my championship match. If I lose the semifinals, my third place match in the Sully's Fight for Lysander event number 4. That is, yes, there were a lot of these and they all kind of sound the same. We're going to start out with a little bit of a tad bit of controversy, and I'm going to take you behind the scenes right now to the controversy that you did not even know about. So, for anybody who's made the Final Four of one of Sully's tournaments and been told that the start time is 1 o'clock, you actually know that the start is actually never going to start on time. Not a single one of the 4 events started on time. Some being delayed as much as 45 minutes. So this one was no different. This time around, everybody in the Final Four was ready to go on time, 100% perfect. A great job for all of us on the Final Four. I'm patting myself on the back for being a good job at showing up on time. As per usual, Sully delayed. So let's fast forward to approximately 5 minutes after we were supposed to start. Well, the first match of the Final Four was Antofa versus Allen Straight. And they decided that, well, you know, it's 5 minutes past. Let's go ahead and just start. Here's the conversation in the Final Four, Top 4 only channel. Sully says, don't start at 1:05. No, triple question mark. Do not start. I will tell you when to start. That game does not count. He tags them. I told you guys I will tell you when to start. You guys are doing a practice game. Okay? So he's right there. First off, the Final Four participants are getting started, by the way, on time. I mean, like 5 minutes actually late. They're starting their match 5 minutes late. They were the first match. Like, we were all ready to go, right? Now, Sully's wanting to boycott the game, though both sides have information about what the other queued, which they would not have had if you're not doing a make-believe game. So, the broadcast goes on. Sully joins this game mid-game. And he sees that Antofa's playing Control Deception, and I guess Sully didn't want to sit through that again. So, Sully, you can see 8 minutes after this, in start next game right away. That will be the first game of the set. No, and then look, this is 8 minutes after. He says, start next game right away, and that will be the first game of the set. So still 8 minutes after, he's saying the game doesn't count, and then like a minute later, he's like, actually, I might just count it. Go in, yeah, just count it. Game 1 counts, we are watching. Like, what? The dude is yelling at the players for starting kind of on time, but technically 5 minutes late. And then he tells them the game doesn't start. I'm Allen Straight, I see that, and I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, the game doesn't count. Like, cool, I'm getting crushed by Control Deception. Nothing matters. And then 8 minutes later, actually probably 9 to 10 minutes later, because he's literally changing his mind here, he decides that he's gonna count it now? What? This is completely horrendous in terms of tournament organization. First off, when you have a start time, stick to the start time. Run the program, run your show on time. If that means you need to start your stream at 12:50 for a 1 o'clock show, do it. Because the players are on time. We're all on time. You know, so I don't get it. So Allen Straight here, you see, he sees all this, and then he types in okay, period. I love the period there, by the way. I'm not sure you can see this on the YouTube video very well, because the res is hard to sometimes get the details. But to me, that period is very sassy. Because I would be pissed if I was Alan Straight and like, wait, you said the game didn't count. Now you're saying the game counted because you don't want to sit through a controlled deception game. Well, if I had won in 5 minutes with aggro light, which is what Alan Straight was playing, you would not have counted the game. It's completely unfair to Alan Straight here because if it was a quick win for the aggro deck, which the only way aggro deck beats aggro light beats controlled deception is a very quick game. If it was a game like that, then the game would have been probably under 8 minutes, and they would have given it no counting. They would have not counted the game. So we already start off controversy. I was not involved in this matchup. I do wonder if there could have been some tilt involved. Alan Straight made a lot of play mistakes in their match, and probably a little bit of rattled from the start here. And Antofa wins the first match of the semifinals, 3-1. Now let's get into my games, which is normally what we focus the video on, but this was probably the spiciest thing that occurred during the Final Four. So we queue into game number 1, and I elect to start off the match with Control Magic, one of my more reliable decks throughout this tournament series. He is coming out with Death, which can be a variety of things, but you expect some sort of zombie thing. Nubians can be a thing, and Control Death can also be a thing. So here in this opening mulligan, I'm kind of just expecting zombies here. So we see the Bronze Servant in our opening hand, and we like that because we can eat a Necroceptor. We don't really like drawing the second Bronze Servant immediately at the end of that mulligan. But, you know, no harm, no foul. They're not coming at us with a lot of speed here. And that is kind of a relief for us. Because our draw, the double Bronze Servant in hand, is very clunky and awkward. Here, he plays a card I honestly don't think I've ever seen played before, Vengeful Stirrup Height, and we'll go ahead and I guess bolt it. That's a 2-mana 3/2, played for tempo, and the Empower 2 to kill a 2-cost minion. In the format with Genesis not allowed, you're not really teching for Pyramid Warden at all, so it doesn't make much sense to me, but anyways. They played the Necroceptor. I am incredibly happy to see an early Necroceptor, given my opening hand had 2 Bronze Servants. I can get one of those suckers out of my hand right now, and feel very happy that I achieved good value, and only have 1 more Bronze Servant left in my hand. The dream is that he has the double Necroceptor, and I do the double Bronze Servant, and then we feel good about things. So we see the Dead Sentry here, and yeah, I mean, it feels more like a kind of a mid-range zombie list at this point. So I figured if this game reaches the late portions of the game, then I should win anyways. So Flame of the Second Shattering, waiting until 9 mana for value just isn't the thing to do there. We're going to use it to clear the board, prevent ourselves from getting rolled. Could have played Crystal Tech Scholar there, but again, wanting to just really keep control of the board and keep things pretty simple. So we feel pretty good about this start. We see the Crystal Tech. We can play both Crystal Techs next turn. If they go wide, we've got Shape Blast. If they play another Necroceptor, we've got Bronze Servant. At this point, I would say everything is going pretty good. So they elect to go ahead, use Curse to Greed, and use their Pip to pip out a 4/5. They did not empower the Curse to Greed, which is, I mean, it's okay if you're not playing Anubians. Here, it just feels like the perfect time to ramp up. We ramp up. We can set up Unbound Flames for next turn. We can play Snow Shaper Palace. We can play Shape Blast on certain situations. So it just felt like the perfect time to Crystal Tech. We're at 29. Don't mind taking four additional points of damage here. And yeah, so they're going to go ahead and play another Blessed Sentry, which is a little bit annoying because Shape Blast can either deal damage to front lines or non-front lines, and Unbound Flames is somewhat awkward on this board because you can't really go face with it. I can hit the 4/5, which, when we go back and look back on this situation, I think I'm going to wish that I had done. But we'll get more into that as the game goes on. But we do draw the Star Shard Bolt, and it's just so clean and just to go ahead, remove the dead sentry, get the favor from our 2/1/1s on the board, which will allow us to purchase the Rune of Fire, which is indeed the next best card in the Sanctum. So yeah, with the top deck Starshard Bolt, it was a little bit too tempting to resist. So we go ahead, we grab the Rune of Fire, and then we're going to use the GP. Obviously, GP hitting the minion. Their minion has an afterlife of healing their god anyways, and they're at 28. So pushing damage at this point isn't really on our radar. But we feel good here. We're at 25. We are not getting steamrolled. And I've got to assume that the late game for my deck is probably better than the late game of their deck. They're going to go ahead, Blood Ritual one of my 1/1s, which isn't surprising. Not a super productive turn. And here we can just simply attack and then use Rune of Fire to get rid of the minion. Or I can play City Planner. We top deck City Planner, and here I probably make a mistake here. I asked the question, do you have Bifurcating Curse? And, well, spoiler alert, the answer is yes. I could have cleared the board, prevented taking an additional 4. And the thing is, I'm a little bit worried about over the line, Corpse Explosion type of stuff from his list. So you don't want to get too low on health, just trying to eliminate their outs of winning. And they go ahead, wipe the board, and we're basically left in the same situation now, except to have 4 less health than I did before. We're getting into a lot of their potential lethal ranges. The Shape Blast doesn't really help that we just drew, and we can go ahead and just Rune of Fire and ping their minion, go face. That will get them all the way down to 29. It feels like we've accomplished a lot here. Still got that second Bronze Servant in hand, which isn't really accomplishing too much at this point. But we are kind of stabilizing, and 17 is a bit of a ways to go in terms of reach, even for death with over the lines and Corpse Explosions to worry about. Go ahead, and now they get 2 minions out on the board. We have 2 Shape Blast and an Unbound Flames, so we have so much board wipes that we can effectively waste them at this point. This isn't the ideal board state to use a Shape Blast on, but at this point, why not? I mean, what are we saving it for? I don't want to take additional points of damage and get even lower to those aforementioned potential lethal outs. So here we have the option to buy from the Sanctum. We elect not to. So the Lambasting Wand is arguably one of the scarier cards, except for the fact that we can play Bronze Servant. I'm not as worried about Necrosceptor at this stage of the game. Here they play Deathwatch Curate, which is a very awkward minion. I don't have a clean way to deal with it. We are 1 favor away from grabbing the Rune of Fire, the Rune of Power, which would deal with the situation very cleanly. We do draw a Starshard Bolt, and here the correct decision would be to play the Starshard Bolt and pip out the Leyhorde Hatchling, because really taking the extra damage is not very safe here. Here, I instead elect to play kind of a very weak line in my mind, because there's no way that 2/3 survives here, and he's going to have the opportunity to go face for 5 additional points of damage. I think if I could go back and do that, playing the Star Shard, pipping out the Leyhorde was the way to go. Get rid of the Deathwatch Curate, not take 5. As expected, dealing with that was a very, very easy problem. And he goes ahead, plays the Magistrate, which does give it an afterlife, returns it to the board. However, the Snowshaper Palace deals with that situation incredibly easy. Actually, the perfect card to answer. If it didn't have Snowshaper Palace, probably in a lot of trouble here, because that is a very, very annoying thing that they can do. So the Sanctum has the Lambasting Wand, which is something he can purchase. I can remove 2 durability off with the Bronze Servant. They elect to instead take the Form of Power, which can push 1 point of damage, clear my board, and that is exactly what they do. And here, this turn is just super easy. I can't play Healing Elite here, even though it looks tempting. If I play Healing Elite, there's a very high likelihood that our opponent is running Rave Disintegration. So that's why we don't play Helion. Of course, if they don't have that, then it is an issue. But Bifurcating Curse is another card they could have. We've already seen won from Lipa this game. That is what I'm thinking about with that line. They play a Guild Enforcer, which is very awkward, and they have the Blight Bomb for the Snowshaper Palace, which I fully did not expect to live here. So here's another situation where we've got to think things through here. I don't love tossing out Helion because if they have the card that I think they're holding, which is Ray Disintegration, they can kill my Helion Elite and then attack face, and I'm at 6, and I mentioned before I'm expecting some sort of corpse explosion over the line potential from Lipa here. And with those being potential cards, I really, really, really want to go ahead and deal with the situation. So it's kind of awkward here, but I want to conserve the Unbound Flames because that's the best removal, but we are able to remove the Guild Enforcer. So looking through potential things, I want to have him basically brick a turn before I play Helion. And here they play Kaya, which is going to push another 5 points of damage face, and we are now at 6. That is very, very awkward. Obviously, we have to kill Kaya this turn, otherwise we are pretty much dead. And we, of course, do so, getting the value out of the Stormstress as an additional ping alongside our God Power. So we've got a Helion in hand and a City Planner. We just haven't been able to find time to get those out there, but potentially high value cards we can get out there. But they have the Ray Disintegration. They put us down to 4 health, which is incredibly scary. And there's a Nightleaf Trapper in the Sanctum. The one decent thing is, the thing I got to worry about here is if I play Helion Elite, they have a second Ray Disintegration. It's lethal with the Vanguard Axewoman. So it's just super, super awkward. So with that in mind, I go ahead, I draw a card with the idea that I have the backup of just playing City Planner. And then here I decided, well, I draw the Rune Moth. I can get heal off of the Rune Moth, and that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping to get the Rune of Healing, and I thought this was a great opportunity. I kind of waste my Worm Breath, but I'm looking for the Rune of Life. I'm at 4. I'm not comfortable here. We do indeed get the Rune of Life, which was exactly what I was wanting. So here, I feel like the Rune Moth is a must remove because they cannot let me just achieve more value. One thing to note is I left the Sanctum empty, and the reason why is if they buy the Lambasting Wand, I can actually buy the Nightleaf Trapper, play my Bronze Servant, and the Lambasting Wand does 0. They just lose their favor. We bait a Bifurcating Curse on what I consider to be kind of a nothing board. So I feel like we accomplished a lot of success there. We see our hand has Helion and City Planner. We're going to be gaining 3 health with Rune of Life very soon. And they go ahead, they buy the Nightleaf Trapper to protect their Necroscepter, so they spent their favor, but of course we're sitting back with the Bronze Servant, which deals with the situation perfectly. So here I have the mana to go ahead and play the Bronze Servant and play the City Planner. But instead, I like to draw here. I disagree with that line and looking back on the situation. Yeah, I should have just played the Bronze Servant, played the City Planner, because there was really no way to exploit that line. I don't know why I'm that annoyed of leaving them with a 1-1 on the board. That was a really bad play on my part, looking back on the situation. I do spend all of my mana and go face with the Ley Horde, though you could argue that keeping that would have been somewhat better. We grabbed the Lambasting Wand because now that we have played our Bronze Servant and they bought the Nightleaf Trapper, the combination of those two things means that we really, really, really do not want them to get the favor and be able to purchase that. And if they hypothetically had a board wipe, they would have been able to afford 15 favor. So they play another 4-5, and here... and a 2-2. So now here they've kind of have us in somewhat of an awkward position. And here I have to make a decision. If I play Helion Elite and hope that it just sticks, then Ray Disintegration is a big problem. So here I'm thinking about what can punish me. And I like to go ahead and waste an Unbound Flames here. Again, I don't like that line. I think I should have just slapped down City Planner there. Yeah, I'm really not liking the way I played this game at all. It's highly questionable, to say the least here. So we do get the Lambasting Wand down. We board wipe them. We only have one board wipe left. So if you can go wide 2 more times, then we're in a slightly awkward position. And he drops down Void Drake. So that is pretty annoying, to say the least. I could play a City Planner. Of course, if he deals the 2/1/4s, he has lethal. And that was a scary proposition. Again, I'm not confident that I can stick Hylian Elite on the board, because I think that he could easily have a Ray Disintegration, which would win him the game. So here, I elect to give up the Unbound to kill the Void Drake. This line is so cringe. The main idea here is I think that if I can get a Worm Breath alongside the Flame of the Second Shattering, that is a combination of 12 points of damage. The Lambasting Wand is an additional 4 points of damage. We're kind of getting close to some lethal lines with that. Keep in mind, we've already burned one Flame of the Second Shattering early in this game. Here we draw Tracking Bolt. Now we have a decision. Do we play Hylian Elite? Do we play City Planner? And here, I think the correct thing to do is to... I don't necessarily agree with Wind Up Roller. I would have gone more towards the Battle Oryx, looking back on it now. Could have played the City Planner and the Battle Oryx. The Wind Up Roller gets us both to draw cards. I think I was looking for a clean answer to Guild Enforcer, but yeah, I like to go ahead and play the City Planner anyways. I think I would rather have the additional front line. It's harder, in my opinion, to deal with the 2/1/4 front lines in this situation than a Hylian. Again, I fully expect him to have Ray of Disintegration and to be able to just eat Hylian instantaneously at any point. We just had this game, we've had two Hylian Elites just kind of sitting there the entire game. So now they play Tacket, which gets back Void Drake. And that is somewhat scary, but it does not have Blitz and Leech. That was my initial worry, but it's not an Anubian, it's just a really large minion. And then we top deck Worm Breath like a pro, which gives us lethal, because the City Planner can go in, the Wind Up Roller goes face, Flame of the Second Shattering is Worm Breath. If I don't top deck there, I think I have to play Flame of the Second Shatterings on the Void Drake. City Planner takes out Guild Enforcer, and then probably the Wind Up Roller plus the Tracking Bolt takes out the Takat. That would have probably been the line that we would have had to have gone with. But instead, just get good and top deck. And that's what we did to win game number 1 of this best of 5 set. Queuing into game number 2, and I'm queuing Deception into Nature. Before you say, oh no, that's terrible, I'm playing Control Deception, so we don't mind that as much. Aggro Deception hates seeing Nature. Control Deception is okay with it. So the fact that he picked Selena's Mark doesn't tell us his deck archetype. He probably has scouted my prior rounds and would know that Hidden Rush Deception is something I've played multiple times this tournament. Also played Control Deception multiple times this tournament. So from the God Power selection phase, he could easily be mid-range, or aggro, doesn't have to be control. Could have just picked it because he was expecting me to be playing a Hidden Rush deck. But they come out here with Black Jaguar, and that is one of their standard opens. They have Canopy Barrage. They probably feel pretty good about this start, getting the early Jag here. They have the initiative, and everything looks pretty good for them. I would have to say I'm ultimately a little bit satisfied with my hand. Counterfeit, not the best in this matchup. Of course, if they're running Moonlight Charm, it's very effective. So it's kind of like a card that I don't want to cycle, but it's also a card that I kind of wish something else was better in my hand. Here, they have a really bad turn of really just low initiative play. They use the GP and pass. That is a very bad turn, especially when I'm playing Control Deception. I think that if the game goes long, this favors me. And we don't know if it's that way for Lipa or not. They go ahead, lightning strike my carriage, and here I elect to just pass. You could have argued I could have counterfeited the cycle to draw a card, but again, slightly worried about Moonlight Charm. Now that we draw the second counterfeit, okay, we're not playing around double Moonlight Charm, especially when he's been floating 5, right? So we're just going to go ahead and cycle. Neither one of us is really accomplishing much of anything, but again, I feel this is probably good for me. Here, he goes ahead and plays a Dynastian Bull, which, oh boy, this is probably the worst card he could have played, because I'm sitting here with stat reduction and Bound by Her Will, and now that is a 1/7 front line with regen for me, not for him, and this has to be absolutely devastating, because that's normally a very difficult threat to deal with. Here they play Veil Warden, and Veil Warden is another card that can be very difficult to deal with. And here I go ahead and just go ahead. Yeah, I'm going to play the strength reduction. Now what I want to do here is I want to play Umber Arrow to steal it. And I'm basically trying to bait him into saying, hey, you've got nothing to worry about here. Everything is fine. I want to use Umber Arrow to steal the Veil Warden for the Afterlife, so I get the 7-cost minion. Here, they have Enchanted Vines, which is honestly the best card they could have in this situation. They kill their own Veil Warden, so they get the Afterlife, and I don't. And here, yeah, we can just go face and drop a Guild Enforcer, and we can hide the Guild Enforcer or hide the Bull. I elect to hide the Guild Enforcer. It can go either way. there's not a wrong answer on that front. I guess if they have charging Oryx from the Veil Warden, I'm now putting the Bull at risk instead of the Guild Enforcer at risk, and I don't know which minion is more valuable to keep. But they got Archmonian Hydra. I assume they got the Archmonian Hydra off of the Veil Warden Minotaur. It's one of the things that you can get. Luckily for me, I have Hunting Trap in hand. And the Hunting Trap can kill the Archmonian Hydra before I have to decide what else I want to do this turn. So we get that very super clean, super smooth. And the Uncanny Rogue is an interesting top deck. Normally, I like to pair that with Umber Arrow, so I steal my opponent's minion, then I give that minion Deadly, and then I trade into their best minion. But I thought that putting Deadly on the Bull would be hilarious. I stole their Bull. It's got Regen 4. It's Deadly now. So the 1 strength doesn't really matter. The fact that it's confused is a little bit inconvenient, but I think that's really, really cool, personally. So we've got a very intimidating looking board, is what I would go with. The 1 Enchanted Vines here, so they play the 2nd Enchanted Vines. I think by this point we know that they're a control nature, so there's still a little bit to worry about. Do they have more greed value than I have? And I don't know the answer to that. We draw Wither Fingers, which we can play for tempo, but I elect that, I want to draw a card here. I want to go ahead, see what we can get here. And we get Umber Arrow. I think now's the time to give up on the counterfeit, because at this point in the game, they're not going to be playing a Moonlight Charm or like any relics to really be feared of. So I think that would be the smart thing to do, would be to play the counterfeit. But here we rope a while and don't take the opportunity to cycle the counterfeit. I think that was a play mistake. I think we should have given up on the counterfeit getting any sort of value in this game at all. At this point, given that they have shown they are definitely control nature, we should be looking to get more into our late game stuff. Keep in mind that our deck runs 2 Cutthroat Insights, and we have not drawn a single one. So they go ahead, the Barksworn hits the Bull. So if they can play the 2nd Barksworn and use the GP, if both of those hit the Bull, then the Bull will die and not get to Regen 4. So that would be very sad and tragic. One thing that's worth noting is that since it's hidden, they can't just play the 1 and get away with it. Now they're going with the Frenzied Ritual here, which is interesting. So I think that's a play mistake on their end. They really should have cleaned up the board a little bit before risking it for the biscuit in that scenario. So here, we got the option here, and the best option is, I'm looking at my health total and it's not being meaningful, but we can gain 5 and they can lose 5 at the same time. Seems to be the optimal play. So here, the bull will regen for 4, so we don't want to take health off of our minions. We get the Canopy Barrage, which is kind of pointless. Since I bought the Battle Oryx, I probably should have bought from the Sanctum before playing the Blessed Minion in case I got the exact thing I ended up getting. But then again, I was still in between on my entire turn, so you can kind of forgive that as it's more of an armchair quarterback type of thing. So I'm kind of doing that in these postmortems here. Here, Lipa has an awkward board to deal with. But they are at 8 mana, and I'm assuming they're control natured just by the way they played. So stuff that they could have is stuff like Vinebound Jotan and things like that are very, very annoying. Here they play a Porcupine, and the Porcupine is annoying. I actually don't have a clean way to deal with the Porcupine. It's quite amazing that I do not. The Porcupine also offsets the Canopy Barrage in my hand, which I stole from my opponent. Very interesting. So we elect to go face, and I feel like this is probably the time we toss out the Wither Fingers here. We put to sleep their minions. I don't want to attack with the bull because it's just not really necessary. And we attack in, and I guess it just regens for 4. I could have hit the 4/2 minion that was dying anyways, and we would have been left with 1/6 stat, but maybe it was worth it to risk it for the 1 point of damage and the 3 favor. Here, we are threatening a lot. We're threatening 14 points of damage, and 15 if the bull listens, and 16 if we Umber Arrow the Porcupine, and 18 if he plays a 2-strength minion and we Umber Arrow that. So we're almost have lethal here. They do need to answer some things. The Lightning Strike, they probably expected a Wither Fingers from me, and it was probably the exact target they wanted. Go ahead and remove that from the board. Easy decision for them. Now they need to do some productive things at this stage, because right now they're in a very, very awkward spot. Selena's Mark, it hits the Battle Oryx, which, I guess they gain 1 health, but that's not really accomplishing too much here. And they get a high roll that was 1 and 3, and they hit. So a bit fortunate there. They play Flame Blade, which is somewhat awkward because now both of my minions are confused. Now, if Ludia's Dedicant hits the Porcupine, then it dies because the Porcupine deals additional 2 points of damage to any minion that runs into. So here we play Counterfeit, and we have the opportunity to go ahead and cheat Orpheo's Distraction, the Porcupine, and we can go ahead and play the Vanguard Axewoman. By the way, this sounds absolutely crazy, but my plan, if I got something off of Ludia's Dedicant that I couldn't play, was to actually waste the Canopy Barrage, which would have felt bad to a lot of people, but it's just not going to be a card that feels like it's going to get a high amount of value in this situation. We do have 2 Umber Arrows in hand, and still feel pretty good about this spot. And the question is do they go all the way up to Dionysus at 9? And this I do not know at the moment. So here, they go ahead, Selena's Mark, Feral Shapeshifter. They should have Selena's marked first to see where it hit, because if it hit the Axewoman, they could have killed the Axewoman. But a little bit of order of operations here. Here we have an opportunity to get some cards out of our hand. We're going to take full advantage of it. Get value out of that Canopy Barrage, which might otherwise not really have value. And to me, this is just a rock solid turn. So those go straight towards the face. I have the opportunity to buy the Ruin of Life from the Sanctum, which is the card that I want to prevent them from buying because I don't want them to get the healing. Also, I can heal up my Ludia's Dedicant, which is kind of the value generation card. And yeah, just going to go ahead and Orpheo's Distraction their minion, get another card from their deck, just trying to generate as much value as possible since this is a control versus control game. And they did shuffle one bomb into their deck from earlier, and they just drew it. So now they're down to 5. That probably did not feel good. And they are 1 mana away from getting to 9. And the question is do they have any spicy stuff at 9? They play Winter's Bounty. They gain 20 with 1 card. And just when you think we're 1 turn away from potentially having lethal, they go ahead and gain tons of health. So here, obviously, it's the turn before they have 9 mana. We're going to play Cutthroat Insight. We take a peek at their hand. And honestly, nothing in their hand is particularly scary at all. We're just taking a look here to kind of memorize what they have. They've got Fir Tree's Fury, which are just not super useful in this spot. And we go ahead and take the Succula. The reason why we take the Succula is because we know that we already have a very wide board, and nature doesn't deal with wide boards very well. So we're thinking that we can go ahead and play that next turn and be able to really buff our wide board. Now, our opponent, we know what they had in the Cutthroat. We could expect a Jolly Green Giant, maybe a Fir Tree Fury. They elect to buy the Wind-Up Roller in the Sanctum, which is very smart because they will get us to overdraw, and then they insta-slap down a Seasonal Rebirth, which is huge. They just top-decked that recently, and they Porcupine can deal with that. So we get surprised by the Seasonal Rebirth. We did not see that in their initial hand. And that card they get us to mill is a Helion Elite. So they are feeling absolutely amazing about how that transpired. With that being said, they burnt the Seasonal Rebirth a little bit early because they knew I just stole Succula, and they knew I would have a board full of Walking Plant. So here, it's just not very difficult for me to just flood this board and say, hey, okay, that's cool. All of my things are going to get +2/+2 and confused. So now this is the greatest looking Succula I've ever seen. I've never seen that card be good. And in this exact situation, it happens to be good. This was a random nature card I assume was likely generated from an Enchanted Vines from their perspective. They take the 1 and 6 on the Canopy Barrage. They miss completely, which has to feel bad. And they are able to go ahead and remove that minion. But we've got a very wide and intimidating board. We draw Wither Fingers. And the annoying thing is a lot of confused. So what I should do here is I probably should just... I feel like there was a missed lethal there. 9, 13... Wait, 9, 13, 17... Yeah, okay. Maybe there wasn't a missed lethal, but we just... Yeah... I'm debating on whether or not that was a mistakenly played turn, but we dealt with his minions. I guess that's okay. We can go ahead, buy the Card Shark, and everything gets pumped from Succula. We've got a very wide, very intimidating board. If he has a second Seasonal Rebirth, then he is back into this game, as the kids would say. The question is that's basically the only card that can save him. We see the concession. So he did not have it, and we win game number 2, going up 2-0. So now we have the first of 3 opportunities to win the series, and we are coming at them with a Nubians, which is the favorite deck of many members of this community. A lot of people don't like it. It does serve a purpose. It punishes decks that are very, very greedy. So he is playing with a war list and takes the Valka's God Power, which is weird because I'm playing Death and most Death decks pick Blood Ritual. I don't know if he assumed that I was going to play zombies and would pick Soulburn or not, but it's an interesting take. But here we got Priestess to the Cat in our opening hand, exactly what we want to see. Get that out early. We don't care if they kill it, because if it's in the void, then we can just bring it back later. This deck is all about killing its own minions, and it doesn't worry about anything else. They have the Vanguard Axewoman, so they trade 1 for 1. However, I leave that trade feeling a lot more satisfied than they did. We top deck the Skull Scepter, which is great. There's no Relic hate in the Sanctum, so they're either running Relic removal themselves, or they're in a lot of trouble, because the Skull Scepter and Anubians really, really snowballs. The Blade of Styx is a pretty solid play from their end, and we top deck V-Rock. We've been top decking on curve and so far in this game. Probably the best card we could top deck. Gets the card draw going so we can draw more and more utility, which is important for us. They absorb 4 points of damage to remove V-Rock. We feel great success, actually 5 points with the Skull Scepter. So we feel very successful in the start of this one. They feel like they're running more of a slow war deck, and these slow war decks can really struggle against these Anubians. So here I have the opportunity to play Vile Reaver and then reach in the back, black and Vile Reaver again. That is a potential line, but ultimately I don't think that is the correct play. I can just simply float one here, and that's going to be what I do. We could have played Vile Reaver and attacked into the 3-4, but then they can just trade into us, and I feel kind of bad about that. So here they're going to get the Raid Reveler for some board presence, Wolf Cult Vanguard out there. We draw the second Skull Scepter, which, I mean, unless if he's running Relic Removal is a good top deck, but if he's not, then it's a little bit unfortunate. Here we top deck Priestess of Cat, which is very, very interesting from my point of view. Maybe less interesting from their point of view, but I'm thinking, you know, I can play Hand of the Abyss. I get Priestess of the Cat back from the Void, guaranteed, because it's the only card in the Void. And we get a Pharaoh's Heirloom, and I like to play the second Priestess. I should play the Vile Reaver here. Do I figure it out? Yeah. So we can go ahead. I have the option of taking the Protected off or dealing 2 damage to the Lykios thing, and to be honest, both are about the same. But we elect to go ahead and take the Protected off. Reasonable enough. Now, here they have a Lychee Olympian, and that will be able to run into my Priestess of the Cat or the 1-2. Probably should run into the 1-2 because they should know that I am easily probably going to have a Vile Reaver available, so their Lychee minion's going to die, and they want to preserve the Lychee minion. Instead, they elect to, they know about the Pharaoh's Heirloom in my hand, so they really misplayed that sequence. So they have a Tartessian Improviser, which is pretty strong. Here we draw Frost Queen Neferu, which at this moment we just don't have space to get it in. That's the simple fact of the situation. Yeah, take a look at my Void, and if I get one more creature into my Void, I can play Reach into Black, guaranteed to get 2 Vile Reavers and a Priestess of the Cat. Don't have to commit the Priestess of the Cat in my hand. This seems like a winning play. So we guarantee to remove 2 of their minions. We're pushing a lot of damage here. This is just a really, really good line. And this is kind of everything is going the way that I would want it to go from the Anubian player's perspective. We've got the next Priestess in hand. Really the only card we need to draw is Land of the Dead. And by need to draw, I mean we actually can win without Land of the Dead. We've got a lot of damage threatened in hand. Ray of Disintegration can kill any big threat that they put out there. Another Reach in the Black is very likely to generate at least one, maybe two more haste minions with a buffing of the Priestess to Cat in there. Another Priestess to Cat in hand. And the Frost Queen Neferu is a minimum of 2 points, usually a little bit more than that, as that minion is very, very annoying. Here, Lipa, they're on the rope, probably not feeling great about this situation. I feel like their deck is very, very greedy, and Anubians is a deck that punishes greed. So they go ahead and Savage Strike, which is probably the smart thing to do. Go ahead and remove both minions. They still take 3 points of damage, going to 12 with that Savage Strike. Unable to deal with the Skull Scepter is a major issue for them. They play the Goblet Imp, and I mean, you can't swing with it because they can't take the 3. It's just kind of sitting there. Honestly, they're probably better off using the GP than playing the Goblet Imp. Just because it's just a target for me to run into. Now we have double Priestess of Takat, and that's a nightmare. And I have options on what to do this turn, but we're just going to go ahead, go into there. We can't kill any of our own minions at the moment, but this will indeed represent pretty much unstoppable lethal. They have Soul Survivor, but they do not win this match. So, an update here on how things ended up going on in this tournament. Lipa, who we just defeated 3-0, in the third place match, defeats Alan Strait 3-0. We talked a little bit about the controversy and about how that could have tilted Alan Strait in his first match, then a long way, kind of probably a little bit bad, and Lipa sweeps them. So I wonder if that kind of affected the second match. So I feel pretty bad with Alan Strait, or for Alan Strait, given how the controversy played out in this tournament. So they end up finishing 4th. Lipa finishes 3rd, but 1st and 2nd are still undetermined. It will be me and Entofa in a best-of-5 matchup right up here next. So game 1 of the finals, I am queuing with Anubians, and they have come out with War. We don't know if it's aggro war or control war, but we know our plan's the same, to get out minions and to have them die. It's typically what Anubians do. A little bit concerned if it's aggro war, feeling great if it's control war, as control war is a pretty good matchup for us. So we have a very mediocre draw, I would have to say. We do have the Raving Necromancer. The Curse of Greed is okay, but maybe not ideal. The V-Rock was decent to get, but can be a bit slow if it's aggro war that we're up against. Here, they come out with Imp on 1 and go straight to the face, which that type of line suggests that they're on the more aggro-oriented side, because the control side is not playing the Imp on 1. So we can pretty accurately assess what we're facing. They go ahead and play Warmonger Smith, a pretty standard card in these aggro lists. They get value out of their Imp, taking out our minion. And our hand is already pretty awkward. Land of the Dead is not what we want in our hand now. Ray Disintegration, way too slow in this matchup. Frost Queen Neferu, see the description for Ray Disintegration, just a tad bit too slow. The V-Rock is going to be easily answered by the weakened Imp already. You could have argued that I could have just GP'd the Imp last turn, but that felt a bit slow. And here they're already pumping their bags on the Thunder Caller, but we do have the Curse of Greed, which can remove it. We don't have another productive play, so we're just going to empower to go ahead and secure the bag on the Pharaoh's Heirloom. Now, they really need to continue applying the pressure. We do have a Blight Bomb and a Pharaoh's Heirloom, which can deal with smaller threats, and the perfect target for a Blight Bomb is that Odie, so we're kind of okay to see that. Here, we can play Blight Bomb, very awkward turn. We can play Blight Bomb, and we can pip out the Frost Queen Neferu, but then we lose our pip. We do have Frost Queen out there. I think that is the line here. There's also the playing 2 Lordable Corpses and trying to set up more card draw, but are we really getting anywhere? And we do elect to go with the Frost Queen Neferu, is asking some questions to our opponent. Not the easiest thing to deal with in the world, but there are some answers that they can have, especially because they love Blitz. They have the another round buff, which is an answer that can get rid of the Frost Queen Neferu, and then they have a side buff alongside. So pretty much the perfect turn. They get rid of the threat that we have, and they create multiple threats of their own. So here, I have the option of playing the Ray Disintegration or just playing Pharaoh's Heirloom and using the GP. I elect to use the GP. Instead of dealing 2 damage to each god, we are healing our god for 1, and we put an Anubian in our Void, and we have the 1/1 minion out there, which will have potential to make things, do some things, sure. We're going to go with that at the moment. We don't have many Anubians in our Void. Land of the Dead would be quite depressing at the moment because it's just not the value that you seek from Land of the Dead. They go ahead and with their 1 attack minion just remove my Anubian, which makes a lot of sense. They have made that Valkyrie really, really tough to deal with. And we're already at 15. We do top deck Cursed Degree. Now here we have options. We elect to empower. Here I think this is a mistake. We probably need to just go ahead, toss both Lootable Corpse and Raving Necromancer out there. Don't bother with the empower. We get the card draw generation going. Maybe we top deck into something. This line is very value-oriented driven, but very, very slow. I think that is definitely a play mistake. But it's a difficult spot anyways, because we're basically giving up the first wave of Raving Necromancer value for nothing. We still don't have Priestess to Cat. We only have 1 Blitz minion in our Void. So all of those things going on, we're really not setting up or comboing into anything anytime soon. They have the Viking Longship. They're able to go face for a minimum of 7 to put us at 8. And we're just really, really, really low on time here. So here we need to do something pretty spectacular this turn. And Neferu does look appetizing until you realize if we play it, we die because the Longship and the Warmonger Smith both live. We can play the Raving Necromancer and kill a 1/1, gain 1 health, but then we still die when the 7 points of damage on the board plus the GP finishes us. We can kill the 2/3, which lets us live at 1 as well with our GP. Effectively, actually lets us live at 2 since we do get value out of the GP. But I elect to make another play mistake, thinking... Yeah, this is just really bad. I should have attacked into the Battle Bard and used the GP on that one instead. Actually, no, this does technically give me 1 more point of survivability. I don't know. It's just really bad. Any relic basically wins for him here. Vicious Ruin wins for him here. It didn't really matter what I did there. We lose game number 1. So game number 1 didn't go our way. Game number 2, I'm coming out with one of my more trusted decks in the entire tournament, my Magic build. And we are facing Light, which actually did catch me by surprise. I wasn't expecting this, and this is probably a pretty favorable matchup for him, because Light has a lot of ward and stuff like Protective Benediction, which can really, really wreck Magic. That being said, there's plenty of things for Magic to be playing for here. I have a good feeling if I can survive to the later portions of this game, then my chances to win are very good. So Light going first is always very, very annoying, and they have Drider Sailweaver right off the bat. Now what do? Do we just pass on 1, and that's what we end up doing? We could have burned a Pip to get rid of the ward, but I'm just like, maybe I'll just ignore that minion for now. And look, everything he has ward, which is just a nightmare because I want to blast things. So here I'm just going to draw a card. I'm looking for a Tracking Bolt, to be honest. just to get the ward off of everything, get me started. I mean, those Vexing Vikars, ward and protected, those things just are so sticky. And just really the dream perfect start for Intofa here in game number 2. Critical game in the best of 5. You don't want to fall down 0-2, because those deficits are difficult to crawl out of. And just another solid play there for Intofa, getting a buff on the Vikar. And I mean, I have like not much I can do here. I've got basically a couple of Guild Enforcers in hand, but you know, if he's able to deal with those very effectively, then I really don't have much else going for me. We get out another 1-1 to draw here, looking for, again, board-wide stuff. Stuff like Tracking Bolt, potentially Shape Blast as well can be a very, very important card. Here they're continuing their going wide here, which is just very, very annoying of him. And if he's got basically any board-wide buff, we're going to be wrecked very shortly. And just ruin a strength on that Vikar. And yeah, we're at 20 right now. They have a great board, very great anti-magic board. This game already looks completely lost. We do top deck the Leyhorde Hatchling, which doesn't get me anywhere. Here, I'm just playing a Guild Enforcer and praying. I'm not really optimistic that this is going to end particularly well. Something like a CERN is very likely. Give that puppy order, then just go straight towards my face. And could basically be a couple of turns away from winning this game. But evidently, he doesn't have a clean way to deal with Guild Enforcer, as the Guild Enforcer is very much alive here. They just go ahead and play their own, and, well, I'm thinking, wow, that turn went a lot better than expected. So now I can play Leyhorde Hatchling, Star Shard Bolt, remove their Guild Enforcer, get rid of their Vikars. We've got Shape Blast, and now they're only left with one ward creature, no protected minions. And suddenly, with that kind of a prayer, that was really a turning point potentially in this game. So here we're debating on what to do with the Guild Enforcer. It's gonna die, so we might as well kill their best minion, or the most difficult minion. Here I have the option of playing my own Guild Enforcer again, but I'm worried about kind of Asterius lines, which are instant KO. And even if he has Asterius here, I'll probably just lose, flat out just lose, because the 3 buffs are just going to be too much. But they have a second Guild Enforcer as well, and go ahead and just go to the face. Of course, if I can get by that Guild Enforcer also, now we're kind of doing very well, because our Leyhorde can remove the other minion with ward, and they don't really have much else cooking now. They've only got 2 cards left in hand, and as I mentioned at the start of this game, I feel like if I can survive the early wave from Intofa, then the late game should belong to me. Of course, what do we draw? We draw Unbound Flames, and Unbound Flames looks pretty sexy, but we're a couple of turns from being able to play it. And so here, it worked last time I did it, so we're going to play a Guild Enforcer and pray. That seems to be our motto in this game, and if it's not broke, don't try to fix it, I guess. It's not what when I woke up in the morning, this isn't what I envisioned. This wasn't my dream, okay? But we're going to go ahead and just try to fight and be a little bit gritty here. It's been a rough start. Though we see Intofa here go to the rope, and trust me, when we see them go to the rope here, it's a good feeling. They had something very clean, like an Asterius. That thing gets slapped down instantly. So they don't have anything that satisfies their thirst for dealing with our Guild Enforcer. And if they can't get by the Guild Enforcer cleanly this turn, then we're just getting 1 turn closer to Unbound Flames. Here they do have a pump for their own Guild Enforcer, which gets them closer to removing my Guild Enforcer, but doesn't complete it. And here we've got 2 Shape Blasts. They have such a wide board, and we can effectively kill everything except the Vexing Vikar with ward on this turn, and to me, that seems like an incredibly safe play. We could actually burn the Pip and kill the Vikar as well, but the Vicar itself isn't menacing enough for me to just burn my one and only pip. So we just go ahead, wipe the board, we'll go down to probably 14, and we're okay with that. We've got another Shape Blast, we've got an Unbound Flames. They go ahead and play Fester here, and go wide, which is rather annoying. But we can go ahead, play the second Shape Blast. We kill everything on this wave. We know they're going to have another mini Fester turn. And we've got the Unbound Flames for that wave as well. And we're only going to be down to probably around 13. So we're feeling pretty good about this. We've got the City Planner coming pretty soon. Chloris Rudemoth can sneak behind. We're feeling very nice. And the cool thing about the City Planner is oftentimes it baits out Levy-type spells, which then protects the Rudemoth if they no longer have those. So they're going to go with Petros here. They're going to try to spam out as many minions as they possibly can, which is great for us. And one of those happened to be a Levy minion. Here, it's no decisions to be made. They're like, you board wipe me 2 turns in a row, here's wave 3, and I'm saying, I've got an answer for your third wave. And usually, if you can get by 3 waves, you're doing very, very good, because now we can start really asking some questions. City Planner, Chloris Rudemoth, and we've got anti-relic, we got relic hate in the hand in case they get spicy with the lambasting wand and try to get their own damage. And they're going to go ahead and play CERN, kind of naked, but that's good from our perspective at least. And City Planner putting out the 2/1/4s definitely targets if they're holding another Levy, and they could be because we saw them kind of waste one for the earlier play. Now they finally top deck Asterius. If they had that earlier in the game, I think we would have been in a lot of trouble. But this does pose some questions towards us. It's less of a walk in the park than it was looking like. With that being said, I can kill their Asterius and drop a Helion, and that really asks some questions. They're electing to get the Ruin of Sight, probably digging for more and more tricks, trying to get themselves out of the situation. And for me, if I can cleanly clear the board, then that's probably what I should do. If not, dropping a Helion Elite against Aggro Light asks a lot of questions in and of itself. And here, the Stormstress is an interesting top deck, because I can take what I would call an in-between play. I can play the Stormstress, I can buy the Archer from the Sanctum, and I can pip to GP the remaining 4/3. And another line that I just did with the mouse there is I could Warm Breath, Archer, and pip out the Rudemoth being protected and could potentially getting some value. Protected by the City Planner and the Archer, of course. So we like to go with this line. Have a lot of favor, so probably should have been using, I don't know. There wasn't that many great uses earlier in the game either. So we found a fringe use for some of the favor we had. We only left them with 1 minion on the board, which we can probably very easily answer next turn. Enraged Healer, Echo Minion, and they are able to give my City Planner order, which kind of validates the line of not playing the Helion Elite. And they do go wide or drop a Radiant Dawn, so they have another wave, and they just keep coming at us in waves. But that Rune of Sight that we drew will give us some other potential options to look at. And what do we see here? Well, another Helion, but we swipe left on that, because the second Tracking Bolt is key. So we can play the Flame of the Second Shattering and 2 Tracking Bolts and kill 3 of their 4 minions, which puts us in a pretty safe place. We want to remove as many minions as possible, because otherwise this doesn't end well. There's so many light buffs that can kind of wreck our dreams here. Here, I'm debating on the 1 to everything or 1 to the specific minion. Here, or 3 to the specific minion. Here, I think the best option is just to play the Tracking Bolts on the 3/3 and the 2/2 individually and trading in the Archer to the 5/1. This does leave the Chloris Rudemoth exposed, With that being said, if he takes a turn off from going to my face at this point of the game, I think that we're actually happy with that outcome. So we go ahead, remove those 2 minions. I assume that 1 Helian Elite's going to be enough to win me the game if I can just get it to stick. The Rune of Strength is a very fun top deck, as it makes pretty much anything that we get something they have to answer to. And they've got the Extortionist, which can indeed deal with the Rune Moth very cleanly. But we do have a Stormstress right now, which is super, super clean as well. Stormstress plus GP plus Rune of Strength, and we have 2 large minions on the board, and they have nothing here, and this is exactly the line that I am going to find immediately. So I do agree with this line. First thing that popped in my mind at the start of the turn, and it was my first thing that popped in my mind on finale night as well. So here, this is just a very difficult situation for Antofa. This is a game they probably thought they had won, but we were able to stabilize. And what is it there for them at the moment here? You could argue that I could go face, but then you're worried about crazy order outs. I want to leave them with no hope. Just slowly but surely take all hope away from our opponent, because we've got threat after threat after threat, and they don't really have much in theory, but then they play Mary Cadmos. Mary Cadmos, very effective card in this situation because, well, that was literally the best thing they could draw. Now I'm like, well, if they've got Censure, they beat me. Because they could give order to Helian Elite, and they could give order to the Stormstress. So I actually elect to play City Planner with the idea of I don't lose to cards like Censure. I'm trying to limit their outs here. I'm not super eager to get the Helian out there. Again, I feel like I still outvalue them. But here they come again with the Radiant Dawn. So they're it feels like the game was over a couple of turns ago, and then now it's like, well, they have life all of a sudden. So we do draw the Bibliomaniac, and we've got options this turn. The problem with playing the Bibliomaniac is I'm not guaranteed to draw anything useful. So I figured, well, I have a useful play. I can just play the Helian, and there's no one-turn lethals out there. Even if you got Censure, we still get one more turn to kind of dig and find our way out of the situation. So here, they are probably in a pretty awkward spot. I would have to say so. Because we have some very large walls. They can tear down the ramparts, but tearing down the ramparts doesn't solve a majority of their issues. Leyhorde Hatchling, great top deck for us because we can continue to fight for the board. The Leyhorde Hatchling, the God Power, and yeah, we can actually full clear here. But I don't think full clear is the correct move. I think just going face with the Helian, it sets up lethal for next turn. Just try to get this game over with, and that's exactly my thought here as well. Threaten lethal next turn, ask the question to our opponent, and this is a very difficult question to ask to Antofa, and he had no answers, and we tie the series at 1 game apiece. So now with the series tied at 1, I go with Deception. And the cool thing about me queuing Deception is I'm about 50-50 on going aggro and control in this tournament. Here I'm going control, and I'm making the controversial decision of picking Thievery. A lot of people disagree with this, think you should take Orpheus Distraction so you can have the win condition of playing Witherfingers and hiding Witherfingers at 9. The issue I have with that strategy is Magic with their burn, I think, is just faster than you. So I don't believe in that strategy as a win condition. So my strategy is I want to outvalue them. So you go with Thievery, and then you pose a lot of threats and run them out of resources. Make them spend time killing your stuff rather than throwing stuff at your face. But we will see how this ends up going here in game number 3. And this is kind of standard control v control. I expect them to be control magic. It's basically the dominant form of magic in this format. So would not expect anything else here. We get Lost in the Depths. Lost in the Depths is... it is what it is. It's not a particularly amazing card. But it clogs up space in the hand is what it does. So here we draw Stone Skin Poison, and now I'm starting to think with the Stone Skin in hand, we've only got 2 1-drops in our deck. We've got 2 Pickpockets and 2 Stone Skins. And since we've already got 1 Stone Skin and 1 Pickpocket already died, I actually think I can play Lost in the Depths on the 1-cost minion, obliterate those 2 cards, draw a card, and it's kind of worth, because the Pickpocket's kind of a negative card at this point of the game, and the Stone Skin, we've already got 1, and their deck's not going to be highly minion-centric anyways, and we got a lot of anti-minion cards as it is. Going to pick up some more anti-minion cards off of Thievery as well. So here, I thought about playing Ludia's Dedicant, and then I'm like, maybe I shouldn't, but now I'm like, well, maybe I should. The issue is we're going to have some hand spatial issues, and, well, we can actually effectively do this right now because, well, we have 8 cards in hand and 1 overdraw. And we actually copy a great card from their deck to copy. Leyhorde Hatchling, nearly perfect when you think about it, and then they still don't kill the Ludia's Dedicant, which shocks me. That absolutely shocks me. Now, we have the option of playing the Static Ether Bug using Lost in the Depths, which does obliterate the 1-cost cards in my deck, but to me, I think that's worth, because we're only losing 2 cards, we've already got 1 Stone Skin in hand, and I don't think we're really losing out on value here. So, unfortunately, I can't really use Thievery and get value this turn because of the hand spatial issue. And Cycling Counterfeit does deal 3 damage to my opponent's face. And that's my thought process on this here, because of the Static Ether Bug. It's going to be hard to get more value than that in that situation here. Counting the cards in our hand, we have 8. We can't make a Sanctum purchase at the moment. But we should be able to slap down Leyhorde very cheap next turn. And hey, the Chloris Rune Moth out there is incredibly annoying. Here, he has to take an incredibly awkward line to remove the Ludia's Dedicant, playing Demetrios Final Draft GP, and it's like, well, if you're gonna do that much, then yeah, please help me. And here we have opportunities. We can play a spell here, and if we hit the Demetrios, we can actually buy the Ruin of Strength and the Sanctum. So here we take a look at their hand. We just want to memorize it. What do we need to know about? They've got 2 Stormstresses. They've got a Crackling Bolt. Planetar Centurium is pretty big. The biggest issue for me is the Helion. It's hard for me to deal with, and also going to be hard for him to deal with his own Helion. So I figure we're thinking more long-term with our decision-making. We go ahead and take the Helion. So now we're looking towards the Ruin of Strength and the Sanctum. If they just leave that bug out there, which has gotten way more value than I would have expected from just about anything from the Healing Elite to get from the Thievery GP to get. And here they're just kind of chipping away. But what lives, the Static Ether Bug is exactly what lives. So we have the option here. We can play Umber Arrow. But the problem with Umber Arrow is, if we play Umber Arrow and the Umber Arrow goes to the minion, we can't trade. But if the Umber Arrow goes face, we can trade their 2 minions. We can also burn Rapture Dance. I want to play Rune of Strength, and I want to clear out space for my hand. So, pretty awkward here, but we're going to go ahead, play the Umber, and hope that it goes towards the face. And yeah, that Ether Bug. That Ether Bug is an absolute all-star this game. And we can buy the Ruin of Strength here. And again, we're just chipping away at them here, getting tons of value. Just as we planned with the Thievery GP. But we can't use the Thievery GP here because we've got that hand space issue. And the hand space issue is going to be a big problem with this type of list, just generally speaking. And they go ahead, they remove the ward, and they have the lay horde to deal with the situation. So we're at 29, and we've taken some of their burn spells out already, so we feel pretty good about this. But now we have an awkward turn. We don't have a good card to play at all. We can play Uncanny Rogue kind of naked, but like that's not satisfying. Stone Skin on a lay horde is not satisfying. So there's a lot of not satisfying things we can do this turn. And I mean, we don't want to use our Bound by Her Will on that either. There's going to be better minions to steal in theory. We go ahead, we use the Thievery with the idea that if we miss, we can play the Uncanny Rogue to get rid of it. And we get something that we can play. We knew about the Stormstress from the Cutthroat Insight from earlier. However, we knew about that when we know that's a great target to steal. So we can use one of our Blade Borrowers and one of our Bound by Her Wills to take that. And we can even take the second one if they so decide to play it. And that's going to be tempting to play it because they can kill the Blade Borrower and, immediately when they play it, which a lot of times it's harder to get value out of the roar effect in matchups like this. And if they do that, we just take the second one, and it feels like we accomplished a lot, but maybe in the grand scheme of things we didn't. They elect instead to use the GP and a tracking bolt, so they're using removal to kill their own stuff. That is classic deception being deception. And they've got the crystal tech to ramp. Now they're going to be at 8 next turn. We do draw the Wither Fingers, and you got to keep in mind Wither Fingers is less of a key card for us here. But here we go ahead, slap down the Helion Elite. And we have Umber Arrow, we have Bound by Her Will, and we have Deadly Potential. They go ahead, they give their God Protected, so they don't eat 10 points of damage from the Helion. That is kind of not a surprising thing to see from Intofa's standpoint, but that doesn't actually answer the questions that the Helion Elite ask on the board. It's still a 10-12 minion that you have to deal with, and they're not going to be able to face race me with damage, because there's no way they're going to throw 29 points of spell damage at my face fast enough. So we've done a good job of distracting them this game by providing threats that they must deal with. So they do indeed go ahead and take the Protected off the Helion. They swing with the 1/1 to get 1 additional point of damage in, secure that. Probably, I don't know, didn't want me to waste an Umber Arrow. They were playing probably around Umber Arrow, so I can't deal 10 to their face. And that did save them 10 points of damage, so that's why they killed their own Crystal Tech minion. Now here I have options, but playing a second Helion Elite seemed very annoying. And there's not really a board wipe that Magic has that can just kill 2 Helion Elites. That's more of a death board wipe thing that you have to be worried about. If you're facing death, you probably don't play the second Helion there. You play one at a time, because they do have board wipes that can kill 2 at once. Magic, on the other hand, this is a big problem for them. They can kill 1 with a Crackling Bolt. We knew about the Crackling Bolt before. That does not answer the questions that the second Helion Elite is asking. And those questions need to be answered. Otherwise, this game will be ours. And they do not seem to have the answers, because all they did was ramp a little bit harder. But that ramping's not going to get them anywhere, actually. And we're just like, well, I'm going to play another threat. And there's not really a board wipe that gets them out of this situation, because there's not a board wipe that kills Helion. Even if they can turn Helion into a rat, well, you've got to deal with the Wither Fingers now. So we've got multiple threats that are asking questions. And this is just really a difficult spot for Magic. Really hard to do 29 points of damage from hand from his exact deck list. But here, he has gone to the rope here, looking, digging, trying to find his way out of the situation. However, in game number 3, there is absolutely no escape from our board presence. And ultimately, what we have here is going to be too much for Antofa to deal with, and we take a 2-1 lead. Now we're going to be queuing up into game number 4, an opportunity to clinch event number 4. That would be pretty fitting. We're going first with Aggro War. Can't ask for much more than that here. And we have a mulligan that's okay, but nothing that's completely amazing. Was really hoping to get another 1 to go alongside that Battle Bard, so that I could play my other Viking on 2 and get the boosted relic. And instead we end up with a very awkward hand. Tavern Brawler, not particularly amazing in this matchup. Battle Bard is kind of a little bit awkward. So on 1, we're just going to go ahead and play the Valka's Captain. You could have argued playing Tavern Brawler on 1, and they have the perfect turn 1 response, which is Armor Lurker. So here, I remember this turn because I make a mistake. Playing the Battle Bard is a really bad mistake, and the reason why it's a bad mistake is I'm pushing 2 damage, floating a mana. I could have just used the GP. Adding the 2 strength to that minion doesn't accomplish anything at all, and it just absolutely wastes the Battle Bard, a completely wasted resource. And it's just a very awkward position. So a pretty awkward opening hand. The Trial Spirit's a good top deck because it gives us a very clean turn this way around. We can play the Tavern Brawler, the Trial Spirit, remove the Armor Lurker. Even though the God Power can finish off the Tavern Brawler, if we can get them to use 2 mana to do that, we're kind of okay with it, and that's exactly what ends up happening. So they go ahead, they're able to remove that, they get the Stone Skin on the Trial Spirit, we draw the Grand Hall. Grand Hall is in the deck with the mentality for the aggro v aggro matchups. They feel a little bit more control-oriented. We go face with the Relic to give us Frenzy to bump the Thundercaller up. It still dies to Hunting Trap, but we've already baited 1 this game. They have the second one. The flawed logic of, well, they can't have the second one because they had the first one, bites us again. Not the first time that has bitten me or, well, anyone else playing a card game in the past. And here we do draw the Imp, which again is a good top deck. We're pushing some damage, which is good. And the lower we can get them, the better we feel. And unfortunately, the Blade Borrower is just going to make that Imp kind of be somewhat pointless. Here, we basically have to play out our hand. We have no other line. We are all in. We either win early or we lose. And here, I think I make a play mistake there. I kind of understand why, though. Probably should just push to the face and ignore everything. But at that moment, I was worried about GP, and then the Blade Borrower could trade into the Trial Spirit. But I think just pushing damage to the face is a more accurate line. But either way, we're arguing over small apples on that decision. They do have the Stone Skin Poison for the Trial Spirit, and they're able to use Orpheus Distraction and attack with the Armor Lurker to finish off the Imp, a very clean clear. We pushed 2 less points of damage because of that. Potentially pushed 4 less points of damage in this game when you factor in we wasted the Battle Bard. A couple of things to keep in mind for later in this game. So here they are on the rope. Curious Wander Cats comes into play. It eats relics for breakfast, and it is quite annoying. Here we're able to remove the Armor Lurker, unfortunately unable to have a favor generation moment, so we can't buy the Rune of Fire in the Sanctum. The Lambasting Wand is of no use with the Wander Cats on the board. They just peel it. And they are able to get a front line on the board. The Wander Cats also on the board here. We've only got them down to 17, a bit frustrating. And we top deck White for a Guard, and that's a pretty solid card. It asks some questions to our opponent here, but we're already right around that 7 mana time frame, and that is not a good place to be against Control Deception. That is where dreams come to die. And speaking of shattered dreams, They are just going to say, that white fur guard looks nice, and I would like to have that, please. And at this point, I say, no mas. And game number 5 will be necessary. We come into game number 5, the deciding championship game for Fight for Lysander, event number 4. And it is me coming out with the Nubians and Antofa coming out with what appears to be control nature. So here, I make a slight mistake in the mulligan. Probably shouldn't keep Curse to Greed, but we do. So yeah, just a little bit of an iffy thing there. Should have gotten a little bit more greedy. Not the worst thing we could have though. We have V-Rock, we have Priestess of Takat, which is great, getting that out early, and potentially being able to get some value out of that early. So they're able to play a Black Jaguar, and here I think I make a mistake. I probably should attack and use the GP to remove the Jaguar, save the Pip, and live to fight another day from a value perspective, because if they remove the V-Rock and then the Jag takes out the Priestess, then we have to deal with the Jag, and it's just awkward. So I disagree with that line from my perspective, but they're able to get a value trade there, hit a 50-50. They had a 25% chance to go face and a 25% chance to hit the V-Rock. And they have a pretty effective looking board. We're going to go ahead and trade the V-Rock, which is inconsistent with my play the prior turn of just blindly going face. So we're seeing some inconsistent play for myself here in the finals. We do go ahead and power, so we get a Pharaoh's Heirloom, and we bring back the Priestess of the Cat very temporarily. We knew that was going to die immediately. And that is no surprise, but we do have the Pharaoh's Heirloom, which should indeed be able to help take out that Jaguar, which, again, could be out of the game if we had chosen to remove it, but we elected not to. Might be an opportunity to play the Curse to Greed, secure a bag on another Pharaoh's Heirloom. I'm going to build the Vile Reavers up in the Void. We already have the Land of the Dead in our hand. We do know about a Priestess of the Cat already in the Void, so we've got a couple of our pieces already. So here, they go ahead, they play Pack Succession, and you get a random card. They get a, I would say, probably a below average one, so we're happy to see that. And we have the opportunity to play Pharaoh's Heirloom and use the GP to remove the minion. And here we draw Curse to Greed, but this would be a pretty simple situation. Not much to think about in the spot here. Just go ahead, stick with the program. We get one Vile Reaver in our Void, and we're able to remove the minion. We've got another Curse to Greed, double Brimstone. We have a lot of cycles in hand, a lot of card draw, a lot of Pharaoh's Heirloom. So we've got some things brewing here. And they've got Mana Garmar, and they use the Ruin of Strength on the Encumbered Looter, so they spread out their statistics to not get wrecked by Curse to Greed. And here is probably a very big inaccuracy from my standpoint. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to use the Curse to Greed here. I should have used Pharaoh's Heirloom. And the reason being is it's so much more mana efficient to use the Pharaoh's Heirloom and the GP than the Curse to Greed. Playing the Lootable Corpse gets us absolutely nowhere. It's just going to die immediately, and it doesn't really accomplish anything. The Curse to Greed could be used to kill bigger threats, like actually the Moonhound, which is a problem, and can keep regenerating the mana and making Antofa more efficient in the situation. We draw the Skull Scepter, which at this time of the game we're pretty excited to see. It's a key card. It helps us generate a lot more reach within our list. We draw Blight Bomb. Blight Bomb with 2 Pharaoh's Heirlooms can kill the Guild Enforcer, but we're thinking we're going to take it a little bit slow here. We can Brimstone, we can Pharaoh's Heirloom, and we can eventually next turn be able to deal with the Guild Enforcer with Blight Bomb. That's going to be the mentality here. We are at 17. We have taken a bit of damage. We haven't seen a Raving Necromancer. We haven't seen the second Priestess of Takat yet. So those are 2 cards remaining in our deck that we are expecting to see at some point. They use the GP to kill our minion, which is a relief because that means they don't have relic removal. At least that's what I thought at the time. Because why would they kill my minion if they had a way to remove my relic? Well, yeah, I kind of set that one up and spoiled the drama just a little bit. It is a play mistake on their part, missing out on 1 point of damage, or giving me 1 additional point of damage, but this board state looks rather menacing, if I do say so myself. We need to chip away at this board, but luckily we are able to. We can play Vile Reaver, Blight Bomb, and play Pharaoh's Heirloom to kill the 4/2. So we can remove 2 of their 4 minions. Their 2 biggest minions as well. And the Form of Power can be useful here as well. We can actually clear 3 of their 4 minions and only leave them with a Confused minion. I like to play V-Rock instead of Pharaoh's Heirloom. I kind of get it, but... Oh yeah, wait, I get it now. I get it more now. I got them to overdraw. So did that for the overdraw there. It makes a lot more sense. It makes a lot more sense there. Okay, I was going to criticize myself, but now I'm going to be less critical. Because we did get them to overdraw. They overdrew a card that wasn't the most important. But then again, you never know. You can always high roll and hit something big. We're going to get them to overdraw again with this. They overdraw Veil Ward Minotaur, which is a much scarier card because it heals them and gives them big minions. We draw Vile Reaver, which is pretty cool. We can actually play Land of the Dead right now and get a decent amount of value out of it. And that is probably the correct play. So we draw Raving Necromancer and have the opportunity to just slap down Land of the Dead here. And anything else would just be a grave mistake. So I don't really understand the rope here. It should just be Land of the Dead, attack with 1 minion, play Raving Necromancer, attack, probably pip out Vile Reaver. That's probably the play here. Of course, I guess it depends. Ooh, yeah, this is a really bad play mistake. Looking back on this situation, I could have slapped a Land of the Dead out there right then and there, and it would have made a lot of sense. This is just a really bad line. Very defensive. I need to be more aggressive in attack here. I'm a Nubians. I need to really show up and attack. That was a really big missed opportunity there. I wonder if we slap down that Land of the Dead, if that's asking the questions that may or may not be able to be answered by Antofa, because we only have to give Soulless to the Priestess of the Cat. We would still have 2 Raving Necromancers and 1 Priestess of the Cat potential for the second Land of the Dead. So go ahead and earmark that moment. Here comes out City Planner, and City Planner is super awkward. In this spot, I mean, this is 7/7. I can't reach it, actually. Land of the Dead gets me nowhere because we don't have enough minions to effectively get to it, so any sudden bloom would be an instant KO against me. This is an opportunity to go ahead and play the Ray of Disintegration. There is really nothing else to think about in this spot. It's a must-do here. We're going to take a look at the Void and probably be thinking, hey, why didn't we play Land of the Dead last turn? And that is a good question, and I don't have the answer for that. Here, playing the Ray of Disintegration on the City Planner, and I mean, yeah, that's the only line. We get the Afterlife trigger with that zombie, and able to kill one of the walls, but that's not going to really get us very far. There's an argument for leaving the wall up as well. Playing a card like Brimstone in that situation, trying to set up lethal with Land of the Dead for next turn. And then they play Winter's Bounty. Basically, just in time. The perfect timing for Antofa. They get out the Curious Wisp. And yeah, we draw Skull Scepter, but we know since they played that Echo Relic Removal that they have Relic Removal for the Skull Scepter. So the Skull Scepter is, as the kids would say, a quite pointless card. Get more card draw from the Void. That's not going to really get us anywhere. We're going to draw with Brimstone. You could argue that the more mana efficient play was to play Pharaoh's Heirloom, and we're just going to heal for 1 by killing our own minion. And reaching the black is something that situationally can be useful. Reaching the black, if we high roll, we can Pharaoh's Heirloom and potentially have a mini good turn. And here it feels like we have him more on the defensive, but he is at 35, so it's not like we're really making progress here. So they have a wide board now, and we have reached into the black and not much else to do. So we can play Reach in the Black, hope we high roll some, drop Pharaoh's Heirloom. Instead, this is an opportunity to play Land of the Dead and play Necroscepter and get some value. But let's see, what do we go with? We go with Reach in the Black. We're seeing what we get. We start off and we just break. We did not get any of the cards we wanted to get. Very unfortunate from our perspective. Really needing everything to go absolutely perfect at this stage of the game to have any chance of winning. And that was a brick. That was an absolute brick. So here we can take down the city wall, which is not a play that really feels particularly good. And a turn that had a lot of potential is just going to absolutely fizzle out. And again, you've got to be asking the question, why not play Land of the Dead? Had tons of targets to attack into. Could have gained a lot of health, dealt a lot of damage, but at the end of the day, we kind of just brick out that entire turn, and that feels a critical turn in this game. We didn't even stop them from dealing a lot of damage. In fact, if they've got Sudden Bloom, they have Mathematical Lethal in this spot. Well, they got Vinebound Jotun. That is quite large. They make a mistake there. They forgot to attack with Vinebound Jotun before playing it. You could say that's a minor mistake, but it is a missed point of damage. Here we reach in the black kind of just desperately. We do get 1 Blitz minion, and I mean, we're just low rolling, as the kids would call it. And here we are able to get our opponent down to 34 health. Not really making progress. We do have 2 Land of the Deads waiting for the perfect moment, but there's only 6 cards left in our deck. And that is very difficult. We do have Frostcoin Neferu, which does a little bit of damage. And basically, the next minion spout, you would expect Land of the Dead, but they play a hidden minion. And that happens to be the perfect answer to everything I have going on. They have the opportunity to buy Valka's Discovery in the Sanctum to protect their minion. They elect to buy Enraged Ally instead, which is a play mistake because it allows me to buy the Valka's Discovery and basically not instantly lose the game. Or very close to instantly losing the game depending on many cards they could have. Like, for instance, Sudden Bloom would be a potential out. So Valka's Discovery, we can play Land of the Dead, get back a 1. We can have 3 minions die, basically. So that is going to be the play here. Pip out, Land of the Dead. Easy decision. Well, I would say easy decision, but we passed out on some easy decisions before. 1, 2, 3. Get a Priestess. And then we want to save the Vile Reavers for the next wave. So we're thinking about what to get. So Wretched Vanguard has the Afterlife, which is favorable. So that's why we picked that. We can only actually kill 3 Vile Reavers on this attack. So there's no reason to mess around with the other stuff. This will push a little bit of damage, but, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, are we really celebrating getting them down to 25? It just doesn't feel like we've accomplished too much. We have a somewhat wide board, but we're down to 4 cards left in our deck, and that can never be very, very good. They do have the Enchanted Vines, which I get the 1 point of damage afterlife trigger, which gets him down to 24. And then he can even use the GP to get back up to 25 if he wants. We have still made no progress. We did bait an Enchanted Vines. They go ahead and play a Fae Flame. Figure this is the perfect time to get out Frost Queen Neferu, toss out a couple more minions, and start asking some questions. It's like, alright, you've played Finebound Jotun, you've played Enchanted Vines. Do you have any more board wipes left in your deck? And nature has a lot of randomly targeting stuff, and, well, they've got Lightning Strike, which is a heat-seeking missile. It goes to the strongest minion, guaranteed to hit the Frost Queen Neferu, which can set up their GP, guaranteed to hit an Encumbered Looter. And at the end of the day, we have not made any progress whatsoever. So, yeah, here, this is a difficult spot. I'm looking, I don't think I have, like, very many lethal paths here. So, playing Neferu as a way to just kind of push more damage is one thing I'm thinking about here. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So, we're already out of cards. What you see in my hand is what I have left in my deck. So, I need to find a way to deal 21 plus whatever they can heal in this exact situation. That's difficult. So we play Neferu and just take 1 point of extra damage. Could have argued playing Lootable Corpse there, though it's just super awkward. This spot, there's lines of playing Raving Necromancer, Priestess of Takat, Lootable Corpse, and then Blight Bombing the Lootable Corpse. Some things that you're thinking about in this situation from my point of view. There are Priestess of the Cat, Raving Necromancer, Land of the Dead, get tons of Vile Reavers, and then Blight Bombing at the end is potential. They are at 18. We do have some sort of reach, or asking some questions that need to be answered. And what we're hoping is that they play minions that fit perfectly with our board. And what do? They play another hidden minion. That is probably literally the best minion that they could play. And at the moment, we're caught in the pickle. We need to spend mana. And we got nothing we can really do here. They kind of do us a favor by killing Neferu. And by kind of do us a favor, I mean, it's hard to find a path that survives here. We can play Land of the Dead. And, not really survive here. We can play Neferu. We go down to 3. We can play another minion, a Raving Necromancer, a Priestess of the Cat, a Blight Bomb, a GP. And we don't have enough mana to do all of that, but I'm just saying words at this moment, which sounds cool, I guess. I don't know here. We're looking in the void kind of desperately. There's probably not a pathway to victory. Here, we have to play this Land of the Dead. Very low value in this situation. Axel sneezed at that, if you heard that on the VOD, because he is not impressed. And, yeah, there's just nothing to really do here. There's just really nothing to do here. We pick 4, basically, to give us space to play Priestess of the Cat, Raving Necromancer. We can play the Blight Bomb at the end of this line, but we're just not going to be pushing enough damage. And yeah, we can Blight Bomb one of our own minions. It gives us a little bit more healing, and it will ultimately, yeah, I mean, Lootable Corpse is a line too. Blight Bomb, I think, is a little bit more accurate, but at this point we're grasping at straws that probably don't really matter at the end of the day. One last board wipe wins him the game. I'm completely out of steam. and will win him the tournament. Basically, absolutely anything that involves killing my minions in the correct order. Don't if he kills the 4 on the right, then maybe we have chances. But if he removes the priestess to the cat first, which is correct, gonna eat some damage. Blind Cyclops generated from a Veil Warden Minotaur, and ultimately that is not gonna be enough. They do have a Shield Maiden. We have a Neferu. But what is the Neferu going to do? They have more Relicate because that's exactly what they needed to have in this exact position. Unfortunately, all of our minions die. We're not drawing any cards. We can buy from the Sanctum, but what is that going to get us? It's a tournament, so never surrender. Crazier things have happened, actually. That is a false statement. Crazier things have not happened. There have not been crazier things that have happened than a potential comeback in this exact position. And unfortunately for us, Axel is meowing. He is upset. I agree with him. I agree with him. You know, this moment should be about the cat here. Let's go ahead. Show Axel to the audience. Nobody likes to see the game end in an unsatisfying way. So I brought you a cat, therefore it's less satisfying. And he wants to get out of the room, but he has to sit through this. We see the BM by Antofa here, all this extra clicking, and he had lethal, and cool. Like, cool. Cool story, bruh. And that's the tournament. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you the next time I see ya. Axel, you will be set free.